I wrote this book in the haze of depression from Occupy. Not that Occupy was depressing. I found it very invigorating. But this is written after that. And at that time, in 2011, me and some folks at Creative Time put together a show called Living as Form. And it was looking at socially engaged art or politically engaged art from around the world, particularly with artists blurring the space between art and life. And while working on that show, I was very aware of a different show that I wasn't doing. And the show that I was doing was people trying to make the world a better place. But I knew there was another show of people just trying to get their own in the world using culture. And it's a bigger show, and it's the one I've grown up with. And I thought of it as the B-side, in a sense, of this exhibition. This exhibition was about artists and activists using culture to kind of get things done in the world. But of course, some would say, well, aren't you aware, of course, that the Tea Party uses the same things? Or aren't you aware that, in fact, marketers like Red Bull are basically doing socially engaged art in the city all the time? And my answer to all of that is, yeah, I am quite aware of that. And it's actually very interesting. And maybe that's something we should dig into. And that's kind of this book in a sense, but we can get more into that. But I was really interested in a few things. One was I want, on an art level, and this isn't just for art, this book, but I want to put art into conversation with larger cultural phenomena, because certainly the art world, in many respects, still likes to talk about itself as though we are still in 1922 or something, that like modernism is just taking off, and our language of the arts is still, in the sense, removed from the other world. But I would say most of the lessons of the avant-garde at this point have been radically incorporated into marketing, into public relations, into branding strategies, into the way cities are shaped. And just to say, the production of how we feel is a very powerful force in the way power expresses itself, which we know. But what was interesting as I started working on this book is the difference often between art and these larger cultural forces is scale. Profound shifts in scale, mega shifts in scale, kind of money that we don't talk about the arts unless of course you're like a rich artist, and then you are sort of talking like that. But in general, the one-off, the idea of the one individual painting or the one expression, this kind of way that artists think of themselves, that kind of discrete act, is not the way power expresses itself often. They think of it in terms of multiple images, encounters, impressions, optics. So one of the tasks in this book was to put art into language with that, right? So how do we talk about the one impression versus the image that makes thousands of impressions?